Think about this for a second. Why is it that a generation that literally invented the digital world is suddenly trying to delete it from their brains? Right now, millions of Gen Xers aren't just looking at old photos. They are mentally relocating to 1985, and the psychological reason behind this mass migration is actually terrifying. We aren't just talking about a bit of retro fashion or listening to a few synth-wave tracks. There is a deep, subconscious drive that is forcing an entire demographic to abandon the present. But the real reason why this is happening right now, and why it might actually be a survival mechanism for your brain, is something so disturbing that I can only reveal it at the very end of this video. If you feel like the modern world is a glitch, you need to hear what's coming next. Welcome to Personality Analysis, where we peel back the layers of the human mind to see what's really going on inside. Today we're diving into the neon abyss. We are exploring the nostalgia trap. You see it everywhere, the obsession with Stranger Things, the return of vinyl, and the constant remember when posts filling your feed. But this isn't just about fun memories of arcades and cassette tapes. There is a specific psychological phenomenon taking place where Gen X is essentially building a mental bunker in the 80s to escape the chaos of the 2020s. It's a collective hallucination that feels more real than the reality we are living in today. We're going to break down the science of why your brain is addicted to the past and how this obsession is actually reshaping the way an entire generation interacts with the future today. The 1980s weren't just a decade, they were the last era of true physical connection before the internet changed the rules of human existence forever. For Gen X, it was a time of ultimate freedom, the Latchkey Kid era where you left the house in the morning and didn't come back until the streetlights flickered on. There was no GPS tracking your every move, no social media judgment, and no constant digital noise. This creates a powerful contrast with today's hyper-connected, high-stress world. When you think of the 80s, your brain doesn't just remember movies, it remembers a feeling of boundless possibility. Psychologists call this autobiographical memory, but for Gen X, it's more like an emotional life raft. They aren't just remembering the past, they are grieving for a version of themselves that felt truly free, which is exactly why the trap is so seductive. Imagine being the generation that built the bridge between the analog and digital worlds. Gen X saw the transition from rotary phones to smartphones, and that transition has left a profound scar on the collective psyche. This middle child generation is currently facing an unprecedented level of burnout. They are balancing the needs of aging parents and growing children while trying to navigate a job market that demands 24/7 availability. In this high-pressure cooker, the 80s represent a safe zone where the stakes felt lower and the colors were brighter. This isn't just a preference, it's a neurological retreat. When the present becomes too overwhelming, the brain naturally seeks out familiar patterns from a time when survival felt simpler. By mentally relocating to the 80s, Gen Xers are attempting to regulate their nervous systems in a world that feels increasingly fragmented and impossible to control. We need to talk about the Latchkey Kid phenomenon because it is the bedrock of Gen X's unique personality. This was the first generation to grow up with two working parents, meaning millions of children came home to empty houses and had to figure things out for themselves. This created a level of independence and grit that is almost non-existent in younger generations today. When Gen Xers look back at the 80s, they are looking back at a time when they were the masters of their own tiny universes. They didn't need an app to tell them what to do, they used their imagination and their wits. This sense of self-reliance is what they are desperately trying to recapture today. In a world where we are dependent on tech for everything from food to navigation, the 80s represent the last time we felt truly capable. Have you ever noticed how a single synth note or the sound of a distorted guitar can instantly change your mood? That's because music is the ultimate time machine. For Gen X, the sounds of the 80s act as a direct neural pathway to a time of high dopamine and low cortisol. It's not just about the melody, it's about the reminiscence bump. Research shows that the music we listen to during our formative years, typically between the ages of 12 and 22, becomes hardwired into our brains. For Gen X, this period was an explosion of creativity and subculture. When they hear those songs today, their brains release a cocktail of feel-good chemicals that temporarily mask the stress of modern life. This creates a powerful feedback loop. The more stressed they feel by current events, the more they retreat into the sonic landscape. There's a specific kind of magic in the tangible world that has been lost in the cloud. Think about the feeling of a physical VHS tape, the smell of a new record, or the weight of a heavy plastic telephone. These objects provided a sensory grounding that digital files simply cannot replicate. Gen X grew up in a world of stuff, and their brains are still wired to find comfort in physical reality. This is why we see such a massive resurgence in retro tech and hobbies. It's a subconscious rebellion against the ghost-like nature of the modern world where everything is a subscription and nothing is truly owned. By surrounding themselves with artifacts of the 80s, Gen Xers are trying to reclaim a sense of permanence. They want to touch something real again because the digital world feels like it could disappear in a single power outage. We also have to talk about the way we used to socialize. Before the era of likes and retweets, Gen X had to physically show up to be part of a group. This created a level of social resilience that is rare today. The nostalgia trap is fueled by a deep longing for that raw, unfiltered human connection. In the 80s, if you wanted to see your friends, you went to the mall or the park. There was no curated version of yourself presented to the world. There was just you. Today, everyone is performing for an invisible audience, and that performance is exhausting. Gen X is mentally relocating because they miss the authenticity of being unseen by the masses. They miss the privacy of a world where your mistakes weren't recorded and shared with millions. This craving for privacy is a major driver. Interestingly, the 80s were also a time of significant global tension, with the Cold War looming over everything. You might think that would make people want to forget that decade, but it actually did the opposite. It created a live-for-today mentality that was incredibly vibrant and energetic. Gen X grew up with the idea that the world could end at any moment, which made every movie, every concert, and every friendship feel vital and electric. Fast forward to today and we face a different kind of global uncertainty. The brain compares the exciting danger of the 80s with the depressing danger of the current era and chooses the former every time. It's a paradox where the memory of a scary past feels safer than the reality of an uncertain future. This psychological flipping is exactly how the nostalgia trap locks its doors. But we have to be honest, this isn't just happening naturally. Corporations have realized that nostalgia is the most profitable drug on the planet. They are weaponizing Gen X's memories to sell everything from cars to insurance. By tapping into that 80s energy, brands can bypass your critical thinking and go straight for your emotions. This is why every big-budget movie seems to be a reboot or a sequel from 30 years ago. We are being fed a constant diet of our own past because it's the easiest way to get us to open our wallets. This creates a cycle where the nostalgia trap is reinforced by the very culture around us. We aren't just choosing to look back. We are being nudged, pushed, and shoved into the past by algorithms that know exactly which childhood toy will make us feel a spark of joy. So, what is the shocking secret I promised to reveal? The reason Gen X is mentally relocating to the 80s isn't just about fun or stress. It's about cognitive preservation. Your brain is literally trying to protect its original identity from being erased by the rapid, dehumanizing pace of AI and digital evolution. By staying anchored in 1985, Gen X is keeping the human spark alive in a world that is becoming increasingly artificial. It's a silent, psychological protest against a future that doesn't seem to have a place for old-fashioned reality. If you find yourself constantly looking back, it's not because you're old, it's because your soul is trying to find its way home. If you want to join the 1% who truly understand the human mind and survive the coming changes, you know which button to click. Subscribe to join the resistance of the Real.